Support the channel on patreon.com/manlightfoot. There's often times that we as animation fans will clamor for more unique animated films or shows. It usually derives from our want from original works from creators. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that attitude, especially when we're fed the same stuff on a regular basis with nothing unique about it. Y'all have fun with that, but one thing that people have been craving for a while now is more slice of life in animation. There used to be a pretty good, strong trend of slice of life down-to-earth series back in the 90s and 2000s, but by the 2010s, that well certainly dried up. Of course, animation kept on evolving with a lot of different shows and movies, so it made a case not to use these more advanced techniques for something as simple as slice of life without some fantastical element behind it. But a recent fare from Netflix actually showcased that this more evolved medium can work perfectly with slice of life. Entergalactic is one of those things that came to prove something like its predecessors before it. It's something that gives that down-to-earth vibe without sacrificing beautiful animated sequences that enhance the experience or feels like it needed to be carried by some fantasy trope. It's a simple love story that changes things up for the better, and I think it's one that deserves some exploration into how it does that. So let's get into this new thing that's written by Kid Cudi. Groovy. Now before we get into things, do you like this shirt? Well, guess what? You can get your own just like it over on my storefront. I'm partnered with TeePublic to give you cool swag that rocks the Man of 1,000 Thoughts brand. You can get this same animation as a medium shirt I'm wearing in any color, or you can get it on hoodies or even mugs and other stuff. There's also a good assortment of different designs that you get as well, some of which were made by my good friend and Rosebud creator, Super D. But to sweeten the deal, if you buy anything from my storefront, you can send me pics of you with the merch on Twitter and they'll be featured on future videos like these cool people right here. So go to the link in the description below and get your hands on some awesome merch to show your love for the channel. And now, back to your regularly scheduled video.
This is my first one.
Wow.
This certainly is a different kind of animated project that goes in a direction that's not often explored, and that being black love. Sure, we've gotten some shows or movies that feature black couples, but nothing to where it's the focus, really. Entergalactic puts itself out there as a project that's trying to say something unique on this issue. At first, you might be thinking this is some Kanye situation like that Runaway film he made a while back. Boy, wasn't that nice when that was the craziest thing he did back then? Well, second craziest. But this special here was written by Kid Cudi, but it by no means is some vanity project, even though the main character looks like him, but ignore that. It works to be more grounded with everything it does for the most part, but we'll get into that. The movie lets the characters and story carry things without relying on major fantasy elements. Even its premise is pretty simple, with it mainly being about this man named Jabari moving into his new place and working at this comic book publisher and finding love with his new neighbor who is a photographer named Meadow. It's nothing overly complex, but there's a lot that's able to be done with this that the film is able to do. We've gotten plenty of grounded works in animation, but it has become a pretty scarce market. The most recent fare is the Bob's Burgers movie, which sadly didn't do well in theaters, which is just a crime against pleasant things, but I digress. There's also the series itself, which is still going and holding up pretty great. There's other things that felt grounded at first, but quickly went and basically became a fantasy series. Also, they were more for kids. This is purely an adult thing that helps make it stand out. There's even the constant cursing and smoking and all that stuff that seems cool to us when we were kids, coupled with the fact that it's a film no less. That never happens, honestly. There's also just the theming which focuses on the relationship between the leads. Now I know what you're thinking, this sounds so boring and simple, but it makes things compelling and interesting by tackling things differently than most other black love focused shows or movies. Let's go over the characters of Jabari and Meadow. These two are made clear that they can work as a couple, but also as individuals. You see them in their spaces being their true selves. They don't have much going on in terms of drama, not to say they don't have their own headaches in life, obviously. For Jabari, it's his connection to his ex. He tries to keep a friendship with her, which he violates pretty fast. Ooh la la. But this isn't made to be bigger than what it is, save to a degree for later. He tries to make it clear things shouldn't go beyond friendship since there's a reason that relationship didn't work out anyway, emphasizing that this shouldn't go any further. It avoids all the unnecessary stuff that we usually get in black romance movies or shows or even Tyler Perry fodder. Now, on to Meadow. She's an artist who's pretty much gaining notoriety. She meets people and she's pretty social. Now, in other media, this would be a problem that drives a major wedge between the lovers in terms of thinking cheating's going on. We'll get to that later, but from this, as far as that has been shown, that doesn't hurt the relationship. It's not some obstacle that gets in the way of them being together, which I'll admit would have probably been better to see the jobs like play more of a role. Like there could have been some realistic conflict with their careers against their relationship or their struggles they're having with their careers, but it's not bad by any means with what they did here. It's just, it could have been a nice cherry on top of things. Look, I like good conflict in my movies, ain't no shame in that. What is great though is that these two end up having a fantastic chemistry together. You would not believe how much they want to make it clear that they are not your average couple in a rom-com or something. You see a lot of them just being fun and engaged with each other, and they want you to know they want each other. They don't rush things though, they take things slow to really get a feel for each other, even though they feel themselves with the thought of each other, if you catch my drift. There is some adversity to the idea of them dating since they're neighbors, so you can imagine how that can go if things, don't work out, but they are able to move past it and get things going. Though of course things don't go as perfectly as they would have hoped.
Criminal activity. Excitement!
Not that bad, you Philistines. I mean that a strain ends up happening due to the age-old and often annoying trope of the misunderstanding. Jabari ended up leaving his hoodie at his ex's house when he went over to take care of a rat problem. Not a euphemism.
That's a fucking rat!
I told you!
Go!
What am I supposed to do?
Call the fucking exterminator, that's what!
You see, Carmen sends a pic of herself wearing his hoodie in a pretty scantily clad way. Awooga! Meadow sees the text they were having about it and gets upset by this because of her assumptions. They go through a period of not seeing each other, which does kind of bring things to a halt if I'm being honest, but it does resolve in a fairly realistic way. They have a moping period, but they realize at the end of the day there's no real problem. They put aside this, let's face it, petty mindset and actually continue their relationship. They don't do any over-the-top thing like most rom-coms would do. It's more simple and subtle and just a very pleasant way to do things. They see each other and recognize that their feelings for one another is stronger than any small insignificant problem they were thinking about. It pushed them to really understand what needed to be done. Jabari even 100% broke things off from Carmen because of this. He knew that he couldn't move forward if he was gonna keep looking back. It's just a nice and subtle way for this couple to truly show how there can be some roughness at the start of a relationship, but it doesn't need to get horribly messy. Now, one thing that definitely elevates this whole thing is this movie's sense of style. Trust me when I say it puts this whole movie into a cool perspective that only a somewhat recent Marvel-related movie was able to do. I swear we gotta teach y'all some culture. It's no secret that the style of this special takes major inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse, from the designs to the colors to the spills. Damn! There's no hiding the influence Spider-Verse had on this, and the main reason for that is it's animated by a lot of the same people who worked on that film.
What a twist!
Yeah, you wouldn't think the animation style from Spider-Verse would work for something like this, but it does, and then some. It adds to everything going on with the film. There's all these different moments that happen that make the world stand out, even though it's not a fantasy film. There's this use of text at certain parts that can enhance the experience or give context to the audience. The lower frame rate of animation adds a unique weight to the characters that gives it a more dynamic feel to it. The use of graffiti-like textures has a visual pop to it and straight up screams New York City. You can see yourself wanting to get lost in this city, even though it's basically just New York. It's a great means of letting the medium enhance the experience. This even plays into the story as well. Since this is a romance movie, there's a certain goal to it that makes it clear that this is different from whatever you've seen. The animation is used to emphasize the feeling many of us can have when it comes to falling in love. There's these dream sequences that happen that are supposed to imply that sense of euphoria people can have. It's like Hard Eyes, but with the Kid Cudi music. Or like being on drugs. It's a classic case of doing more than what's expected. These sequences add more to what the characters are going through, which adds a sense of depth that this film needs. We learn more about Jabari's struggles with having to appeal to a publisher. It's something we can connect to because he has to change this idea that he's had around this publisher that he's now working for, even though he's the one who created the idea. The visual representation of his mind is put on display and let it be known what ails him. This applies to the others as well. It tells a story without bogging things down or over-explaining anything to the audience. This flair the movie has is what makes it stand as a grounded work. You could get something way more simple that doesn't justify the simpler tone, but its visuals are the standing point and that major justification.
Kid! Get your ass down here! Come on!
Entergalactic isn't your average slice of life project that could easily just come and go. It puts a spin on the black love romance genre that doesn't rely on any negative tropes. It gives that positive side to being in a relationship while still being realistic about things. There's no sugarcoating things either. You get that sense of things can go great, but it's not likely to be perfect either. But you can work through the troubles properly if you're willing to. It's a good reason to give more down-to-earth animated projects a chance, making it clear that you don't need to have a major fantasy element to be engaging. It showcases a positive black love that we don't get that often. It's definitely something that stands to be an exception to the rule of slice-of-life movies. Its use of animation is a case study on the medium pushing the story and the characters. I think it's something that puts a spin on music celebrity created works that will easily stand above the few that we've gotten. It could have easily been a vanity project of Kid Cudi's album, but it stands perfectly on its own. But what did you all think of Entergalactic? Did you find it engaging from its romantic premises? Did you find yourself connecting with the main characters? Let me know in the comments, and always remember, it's just a thought.